Hicks Capudine. Quack medicine? Or did it actually work? Let's investigate on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. Henry Thomas Hicks was born in 1866 in Raleigh, North Carolina, and died in 1940. He was a pharmacist who operated 2 drugstores on Fayetteville Street at the turn of the century. Around 1900, Hicks developed and patented Capudine, claiming to cure headaches, cold, la grippe, which is what they called influenza back then, neuralgia, which is kind of like shingles, acidity, flatulency, indigestion pains, menstrual cramps, and reduces fever. Hicks assured his clients that his cure was not a dope and it was not habit-forming. He had a few other drugs as well that treated other things. According to the report from the American Medical Association, Capudine is a brown, rather syrupy liquid, slightly alkaline, with an aromatic odor and a salty taste. Besides 8% alcohol, Capudine was found to contain sugar, aromatics, chlorides, caffeine, antipyrine, which Google says it's used to treat ear pain, and salicylates, which is found in over-the-counter drugs like aspirin. Honestly, in my uneducated opinion, doesn't look too crazy here. But then we have Funeral of Mrs. Winburn. Her death was due to an overdose of Capudine. Covington, Georgia, September 14th. The sudden death of Mrs. Joe Winburn at Mansfield yesterday was due to an overdose of Capudine for periodical headaches. She was the wife of Reverend Joe Winburn, Baptist pastor at Mansfield, and leaves 5 small children, the oldest being 9. This piece was found in a 1912 Nostrums and Quackery, articles on the nostrum, evil, and quackery from the American Medical Association. They declared that Hicks Capudine was a barefaced attempt to exploit both the medical profession and the public. It goes on to say, Mr. Adams, in the Great American Fraud series, says, speaking of labels on patent medicines, if the words warranted harmless appear anywhere, look twice over for the Ethiopian in the woodpile. I never heard of that saying before. It continues, the statements that 1. Hicks Capudine is not a dope, 2. Does not contain poisonous drugs, and 3. Will not produce a habit are 3 separate and distinct falsehoods. Dr. E. W. Warren of Palatka, Florida, reports the case of a woman who was thought to have been murdered, but the state's attorney concluded that her death was caused by too much Capudine. Here's another article in 1908 from the American Medical Association, and it says, it's advisable to investigate this medicine and calls it another of the subtle poisons. Here I found an article where Hicks is the vice president of the North Carolina Pharmaceutical Association. Hicks died in 1940, and the Capudine Chemical Company was sold to another company in the 1940s, and they continued to manufacture medicinal cures in Raleigh into the 1960s. Acetaminophen became the next headache medicine and pushed Capudine out of the market. A report from the 1964 edition of the Raleigh Times indicated that at one time the drug had become so popular it ranked second in sales, coming only behind Bromo Seltzer as a headache remedy. It came in different sized bottles, in 10-cent, 25-cent, and 50-cent bottles at drugstores. My bottle is a sample size, so the 10-cent size. The name Hicks is not on this bottle, but it's usually on most bottles. So let's date this bottle. It was closed with a cork, and according to one website I found, the cork closure began to disappear about 1920, with total disappearance by 1928. The manufacturer of this bottle has a tiny little maker's mark of WT inside of a triangle, which is Whitall Tatum Company in Melville, New Jersey, and they started using this mark in 1924. I'm not sure what the 2 and the 9 represent in this case. Sometimes it's the factory number, sometimes it's a date, sometimes both, sometimes neither. So I'm not sure how this company did things. So if the cork closure was gone by 1928 and the maker's mark was in use starting in 1924, then this bottle should fall somewhere between 1924 and 1928. Capudine did really well in sales, and in 1912, the Hicks family moved into a 9-bedroom mansion at 327 Hillsborough Street in Raleigh, located on a plot at the intersection of Hillsborough and Harrington Street. The Hicks mansion took 2 years to build. At the time it was built, the home was state-of-the-art. Each room had a bell for service. There was also a central vacuum cleaner installation located in the basement with outlets located throughout the house. A German craftsman was hired to do the stenciling on the living room plaster. The home had a beautiful double-deck front porch. In the 1930s, a private elevator was installed, one of only 2 homes at the time to have an elevator in it. The elevator is still operational today, complete with its old-school accordion gate. The best picture I could find of this house was from Google Maps with a couple big trees in the way. In the 1960s, a law firm bought the house and renovated it. Unfortunately, the big beautiful porches were removed to make room for parking. The firm has been at this location until just a couple months ago in June 2019. One website that I found said that the home is scheduled to be torn down to make way for a new development in 2019 or 2020. That would be a shame. There are testimonials all over the place about Capudine. They would swear by this stuff. And I found a website where Thomas Hicks' living great-grandchildren, they claim that it actually did work. So why all the fuss? Quack medicine? I don't know. It kind of sounds like it was basically Tylenol to me. I mean, it helped headaches, aches and pains, reduce fever. As far as ingredients go in medicines in the turn of the century, it doesn't sound too crazy compared to many out there. With over 60 years of this product being sold, means it must have worked for most people most of the time. That's saying something. But then, Miss Winburn died of an overdose. Or was she murdered? And by the way, you can overdose on just about anything if you put your mind to it, even Tylenol. It honestly doesn't seem any more dangerous than anything else out on the market these days. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching. Hicks Capudine.